up on Arirang News. Driven by robust exports led by chips, South Korea posted its largest current account surplus in about 7 years in June, reaching $12.26 billion. Team Korea's athletes progressed toward the medal rounds at the Paris Summer Olympics on Wednesday, with Tae-joon making it to the quarterfinals in Taekwondo and Sang-hyeok cruising into the finals in men's high jump. Yahya Sinwar has become the Hamas's overall chief, succeeding Ismail Haniyeh, who was assassinated in Tehran last week. He is viewed as one of Hamas's most extreme figures and the architect of the October 7th attack against Israel.
Thanks for joining Arirang News. I'm Kim Bo-kyung. Korea recorded its largest current account surplus in some 7 years in June on the back of strong chip exports. Moon Hae-ryun starts us off.
With the semiconductor boom, South Korea's trade balance in June posted its largest surplus in nearly 7 years. Preliminary data from the Bank of Korea on Wednesday showed that the country's current account surplus came to $12.26 billion. It's the largest since September 2017 and marks the second month in a row that the trade balance has been in the black. With this latest data, the current account balance in the first half of the year tallied up to nearly $38 billion, a notable rebound from the $1.1 billion recorded the year before during the same period. This far exceeds the central bank's earlier forecast, which predicted that the current account balance would log just under $28 billion between January to June this year. These latest figures for June were driven by a solid goods account of $11.4 billion, which marks 15 months of continuous growth and is the highest sum recorded since September 2020.
This comes due to continuous strong semiconductor exports, which reached an all-time high due to a rise in demand for AI-related industries and higher memory chip prices.
The goods account tracks imports and exports amounted to nearly $59 billion with thriving outbound shipments of semiconductors. Chip exports increased by more than 50% year-on-year, along with a rise in exports for information and communication equipment, petroleum products and passenger vehicles. Imports, on the other hand, fell by 5% year-on-year and came to some $47 billion. However, the service balance, which includes earnings and spending on overseas trips and transport, was in the red by $1.62 billion. In particular, the travel sector accounted for a deficit of $900 million, meaning that people were spending more to travel to other countries. Meanwhile, the primary account balance responsible for monitoring foreign workers' wages and overseas dividend payments reported a surplus of under $2.7 billion. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
Samsung Electronics has addressed speculation that a version of its 5th-generation high-bandwidth memory chips has passed Nvidia's tests for use in its artificial intelligence processors. Samsung says that verification tests are still underway with major clients, effectively denying the claims, while Nvidia has declined to comment. On Wednesday, a Reuters report cited anonymous sources saying that the two companies will soon sign a supply deal for the South Korean tech giant's 8-layer HBM3E chips, with deliveries expected to start by the fourth quarter of 2024. Since last year, Samsung has been striving to meet Nvidia's chip standards to compete with local rival SK Hynix in the AI memory chip market. In other news, efforts continue to ease the fallout from the recent e-commerce platform liquidity crisis. More measures were unveiled today, which includes speeding up refunds. An Sung-jin has more.
The crisis surrounding e-commerce platforms Tmall and WeMakePrice still persists, with enraged sellers and customers looking for concrete solutions. During an economic ministerial meeting held on Wednesday, the government discussed additional measures to respond to the chaos as well as policies to prevent similar crises in the future.
The government has put together solutions for financial support. We will begin by completing the refund process for product buyers.
To assist the process, the government will be cooperating with credit card companies, electronic payment service providers, and travel agencies to give out refunds as quickly as possible. For those customers who seek a refund from travel, lodging, and airline companies, the government will also be collecting applications for collective dispute mediation by the end of this week and begin the mediation process next week. For vendors that haven't received payments, additional liquidity support worth 1.2 trillion won or $870 million will be provided from the central and local governments. Starting from Wednesday, businesses that have been affected can extend their loans and guarantees by up to a year. Meanwhile, to prevent another e-commerce crisis in the future, the government will establish regulations for e-commerce platforms to prevent them from using payments from vendors as liquidity.
We will be pushing for fundamental policy reform to prevent damage like this from happening again.
Existing regulations on retail and electronic transactions will also be revised so e-commerce platforms have a shorter payment period than huge retailers. Measures discussed in Wednesday's meeting will become more concrete within the month. Delays in payments from the two e-commerce retailers began in July when their mother company, the Singapore-based platform Qoo10, was reportedly in a tight financial situation. This led to unilateral cancellations of orders, leading to financial damage for both vendors and customers. More than 3,000 vendors have been affected, suffering total damages of 278 billion won, or roughly $200 million as of August 1st. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
Hyundai Motor Group won 17 Newsweek Auto Awards this year, marking the highest number of these awards the group has ever won. Kia has won 8, Hyundai 6, and Genesis 3. The awards were given out in 13 categories based on consumer purchasing behaviors. Hyundai's Elantra was recognized as the best vehicle for first-time new car buyers and the top pick for urbanites, while Kia's Sportage was recognized as the best car for commuters. Hyundai Motor Group recorded the most awards for 3 consecutive years from 2021 to 2023 at the awards. This year, it tied for the lead with Toyota. Over in the U.S., Wall Street closed higher on Tuesday, rebounding from one of its worst wipeouts, as investors seem to have calmed. Still, some voices of caution remain. Tae-joon explains.
Groups on the New York Stock Exchange, including Nasdaq, appear to have closed within 1% of their net asset value on Tuesday. Among big tech stocks, Nvidia and Meta contributed the most with over 3% rises. 10-year Treasury rates rebounded too as the money flowed into safe haven U.S. Treasury bonds. The White House said on Tuesday that the broader U.S. economy is resilient despite some volatility, easing fears of a recession.
And what we have seen recently is consumers remain resilient and business investment remains strong. Unemployment, while up from 50-year lows, is still low at 4.3%.
However, the U.S. stock market as a whole turned downward and almost returned half of the previous day's gains. There was a new report regarding the credit card default rate in the U.S. soaring overnight to its highest level in about 13 years. An unwind in the yen carry trade, borrowing money in yen at a low interest rate and investing it in assets with higher returns is contributing to the volatility. As a result, there has been a heated debate on Wall Street about additional adjustments for the New York stock market.
You're seeing consumer delinquencies starting to build up. You're seeing fiscal stimulus wearing off. So there are a number of factors that would suggest to us that the global economy, the U.S. included, is going to slow down a little bit.
On the other hand, as the U.S. economy shook the global financial market by provoking a stock price crash due to fears of a recession, all eyes are on whether the Fed will successfully execute a soft landing. According to the Financial Times, most economists believe that the U.S. will still achieve a soft landing despite rising unemployment. Jason Fernan, former Council of Economic Advisors chairman under President Obama and Harvard Kennedy School economics professor, said that talk of heading into a recession is dramatically overstating how much is understood about the economy. Chaeyoung, Arirang News.
Turning our eyes to the Paris Summer Olympics. On the 13th day of the Games, there were no medal matches for South Korea. But Team Korea progressed in Taekwondo and high jump, raising hopes for more medals in the coming days, while the men's table tennis team failed to advance to the semifinals. Park Gun-woo has the latest results.
Team Korea's athletes made their way toward the medal rounds at Paris 2024 on Wednesday. Tae-joon made it to the quarterfinals in Taekwondo under 58 kilogram class after beating Venezuela's Yoon Granado by 2-0. That was the national Taekwondo team's first match at the Paris Olympics, where Team Korea aims to win at least one gold medal in Taekwondo. The team failed to win any gold medals at the previous Tokyo Olympics. Tae-joon's quarterfinal match with France's Syrian Revet is set to be held on Wednesday afternoon local time. Other athletes of Team Korea, Kim Yoo-jin, Seok-won, and Lee Da-bin, will also start their round of 16 matches on the 8th, 9th, and 10th respectively. Over in men's high jump qualification, South Korea's Sang-hyeok made it to the finals with a record of 2 meters 27. Only 5 of the 31 participants managed to jump that height during the qualification round. Woo came fourth at the Tokyo Olympics and aims to earn Korea's first medal in high jump at the finals, which take place on Saturday local time. For men's team table tennis, the world's 5th-ranked Korea was defeated by number 1 ranked China in the quarterfinal match. The trio of Chang Woo-jin, Im Jong-hoon, Cho Dae-sung lost by 3-0. But Korea's women's table tennis team advanced to the semifinals for the first time in 12 years and aims to earn a medal in the event for the first time in 16 years on Thursday. Park Gun-woo, Arirang News.
Staying with the Paris Summer Games, South Korean archers have once again proven they are the best, having swept gold medals. Behind this incredible result were careful, unseen efforts. Choi Soo-young takes a closer look.
In this Summer Olympics, Korean archery won gold medals in all 5 events, coming first in the men's and women's team events, individual events, and the mixed team event. Those results mean Team Korea has maintained its dominance in the Olympic women's team event, where it has won gold at every Olympics since Seoul 1988, when the event was first introduced. The men's team also secured a 3rd consecutive team victory following wins in Rio de Janeiro and Tokyo. Why is Korean archery the best in the world? First, the Korea Archery Association has supported the athletes with a meticulous management system. It's often said that becoming a national team member is harder than winning an Olympic gold medal because the national team selection is based purely on objective scores. As a result, top athletes with remarkable abilities continue to be nurtured across generations. In addition, Hyundai Motor Group, which has been supporting archers with innovative technology for 40 years, played a significant role. For this Summer Olympics, they created self-adjusting shooting robots, serving as a practice partner for Korea's world-class archers and helped them maximize their abilities. The robots automatically calculate wind, temperature, and humidity and demonstrate a high accuracy rate with an average score of 9.65 points, allowing athletes to train as if in real competition. Customized 3D printed bow hand grips were provided to each athlete to ensure the most comfortable draw, and a camera-based heart rate sensor monitors the athlete's conditions. To ensure perfect preparation, the Korea Archery Association created a replica of the Esplanade des Invalides Stadium in Paris, where the archery events took place. As Les Invalides is located right next to the Seine River, they also conducted wind speed training near the Namhangang River, which has similar wind conditions. The Archery Association is now preparing for the next chapter of Korean archery at the 2028 Los Angeles Olympics in the U.S. with the best systems and support in place. Choi Soo-young, Arirang News.
In the Middle East, the man who planned the October 7th assault against Israel has been named as the new leader of Hamas amid heightened tensions in the region. Bae-eun-ji has more.
Hamas has chosen Yahya Sinwar as its new leader to replace Ismail Haniyeh, who was assassinated in a presumed Israeli strike in Iran. 61-year-old Sinwar is seen by Israel as the mastermind behind the planning and execution of the October 7th attack, when Hamas killed more than 1,000 people and took over 200 others as hostages. Sinwar has not been seen in public since the devastating attacks, defying Israel's attempts to kill him since the start of the war. The appointment of the new Hamas leader comes as Israel braces for a likely attack from Iran and Iranian-backed Lebanese group Hezbollah. Iran has reportedly vowed to carry out a revenge attack against Israel over Haniyeh's killing in Tehran, and Hezbollah also threatened to retaliate in response to the killing of its military commander by Israel last week, without specifying the form or timing of the attack. While Israel remains on alert, the U.S. says it does not believe Iran or Hezbollah has taken retaliatory action against Israel yet, as Washington continues to make efforts to de-escalate tensions in the Middle East.
Last night, I do want to add that while we do not believe the response has started yet, we remain concerned by the increase in violence, including the firing drones by Hezbollah into Israel.
Amid growing fears that the situation could escalate into an all-out regional war, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has said ceasefire negotiations have now reached a final stage, and that Washington is working with Egypt and Qatar to finalize an agreement as soon as possible. Arirang News.
Meanwhile, Russian forces have reportedly made significant territorial gains in Ukraine in the past 3 months, capturing nearly double the amount of territory that Ukraine had won back in a year. According to the Financial Times, research from the Blackbird Group said that Russian troops have captured around 592 square kilometers. That is an area almost the size of Seoul between early May and August 2nd. One Ukrainian official was also cited saying its defenses were showing cracks and that Russian forces could make more advances unless the situation turns around. Meanwhile, Ukraine forces have made incursions into Russia's Kursk region for 2 consecutive days. Moscow's defense ministry said on Wednesday that it shot down Ukrainian drones over the border region and had repelled an attempt by hundreds of Ukrainian soldiers to breach the region. In the U.S., Vice President Kamala Harris has tapped Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as her running mate for the presidential race. Meanwhile, recent polls appear to show Harris leading over Trump. Choi Min-jung has the details.
U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris has chosen Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota as her running mate. Walz was chosen from half a dozen Democrats on Tuesday morning after Harris held in-person interviews with the candidates. The two made their first campaign appearance together at a rally in Philadelphia later in the day, where Harris introduced Walz as the vice president America deserves.
Because he's the kind of person who makes people feel like they belong and then inspires them to dream big. And that's the kind of vice president he will be. And that's the kind of vice president America deserves.
Harris also highlighted Walz's political record as one that ticks the boxes in supporting her goal to fight for the middle class. Harris noted that Walz was the first governor in the U.S. to sign a law enshrining abortion as a right, paid leave for women, and voting rights. It was also noted that her running mate expanded background checks and increased penalties for sales of illegal firearms. One expert says Walz's diverse blue-collar background makes him somebody who could be quite popular.
He worked as a high school social studies teacher. He coached football in Minnesota before getting into politics. He has a military background with the U.S. Army National Guard. So, too, he worked as a member of Congress for Minnesota before taking over as Minnesota's governor in 2019. So he knows the legislative side and the executive side. So even though
At Tuesday's rally, the VP candidate took aim at his competition, J.D. Vance.
I got to tell you, pointing out just an observation of mine that I made. I just have to say it. You know it, you feel it. These guys are creepy and yes, just weird as hell. That's what you see.
Meanwhile, recent polls show that Harris is moving ahead of Trump in the presidential race. Numerous national head-to-head polls, including Survey USA and NPR PBS News, put Harris up 3 points ahead of Trump in the early August period, at around 48% to 45%. CBS News made it a 1% lead for Harris. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
Turning our attention back to South Korea, while on his summer vacation, President Yoon spent 2 days at a naval base in Jinhae, meeting troops and playing a game of basketball. According to the top office on Wednesday, he also dined and spoke with the troops during his stay to give them encouragement. On Tuesday night, he hosted dinner for troops that have been serving during North Korea's sinking of the South Korean Cheonan warship and shelling of Yeonpyeongdo Island, among others. There, he said a strong defensive readiness not only protects the nation from North Korean troops, but also assures foreign investors to invest in the nation, as national defense is directly linked to South Korea's economy. Yoon's vacation is still ongoing, with more destinations expected before his return to Yongsan. Rival political parties have been engaged in fierce confrontation in recent weeks. But today, the rival parties' chief policymakers sat down for collaborative efforts on people's livelihoods. Our correspondent Lee Si-yu reports.
A bipartisan body for joint policy discussion. That's what the rival parties called for in unison on Wednesday, over 2 months into the 22nd National Assembly, which has so far passed 0 pieces of mutually agreed legislation on people's livelihoods. The ruling People Power Party floor leader Chu Kyung-ho urged what he called a ceasefire of political strife and said that working-level negotiations to form a consultative group between the rival parties and the government, something he's previously suggested, will begin immediately. This following the main opposition Democratic Party floor leader Park Chan-dae's comment earlier in the day, calling for a prompt formation of a standing consultative body to, quote, overcome issues concerning the economy and people's livelihoods. These intentions highlighted by Wednesday's first ever meeting between the party's chief policymakers in the current assembly.
We will put in efforts to possibly process negotiable bills that can be accepted by both parties for the sake of people's livelihoods.
We think that the legislations, where there aren't large differences in opinion between the parties, can be quickly processed.
They mentioned common ground, especially in childcare, housing, and necessary improvements to the current Nursing Act, heavily debated in the previous assembly, sharing a mutual will to continue fine-tuning legislative details for speedy lawmaking.
Despite all this, there is potential for further political strife in the August assembly, as it faces issues the parties are far apart on, including the additional contentious hearing on the country's broadcasting watchdog coming up in the next few days. Lee Si-yu, Arirang News.
Another round of applications for trainee doctors will start this Friday amid the prolonged medical dispute. The Health Ministry stated on Wednesday that this decision comes amid efforts to provide an opportunity for trainee doctors to return. The ministry added that this would be their last chance to return as the training period starts in September. The recruitment process is to be completed by the end of August. Recruitment for the second half of this year originally closed last month, but the application rate was only at around 1%. Out of the 5,700 that resigned since February, just 91 trainee doctors applied during the previous recruitment round.
Even though today's Ipchu, which marks the traditional beginning of autumn, the scorching heat continues. With a heat wave warning in place in most parts of the country, it will continue to be very hot tomorrow as the feels-like temperature will rise to around 35 degrees Celsius. Please drink plenty of water to avoid heat-related illnesses. In addition to the heat wave, we need to be prepared for showers. It's going to rain in the central parts of the country. There will be showers in the south and on Tae-joon Island. Tomorrow morning will be as hot as today in most parts of the country. Daytime temperatures will move up to 33 in Seoul, Chuncheon, Gwangju, and Jeju. Daegu and Busan, 34 degrees. This heat wave will continue with high humidity throughout the week. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That's all we have for today. Thank you for watching. Arirang News will be back at 9 a.m. Korea time.
요즘 한국에선 어떻게 노는지 알려줄까?
한국에선 아이돌이 되어볼 수도 인생 번호를 찾을 수도 있지.
제일 핫한 포토 스팟은 여기.
한국은 분명 너에게 새로운 영감을 줄 거야.
이런 한국. 아버지